Governments deny it. Militaries deny it. Even the mainstream media denies it. But they are here and they've been here for a very long time. The Mutual UFO Network has been on the front lines uncovering the truth since 1969. And now we're sharing that truth with you. Welcome to MUFON What's Up with your hosts, Katie Page, Shane Hurd, and Tara Diulis. Exclusively on the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. Wondering what's up? So are we.
What's up, everybody? It is Tuesday night, and you are listening to MUFON What's Up Radio, the show that says discovery starts with curiosity, and curiosity starts with MUFON. Brought to you by KGRADB.com. I hope that you please go to their website and check out all their great shows and content. It's just jam-packed with so many great topics, and I think you guys will totally enjoy it. As always, we are endorsed by MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, always asking that all-important question, are we alone in the universe? I am your host, Katie Page, the Colorado MUFON State Director and Mars Administrator, and we have unbelievable, super great, awesome guests, and I'm so excited. I've been wanting to meet Phil Mantle for a long time. He's been on that short bucket list. So we have Phil Mantle and Dr. Irena Scott here shortly, and I'm just so excited to have them on the show. What an honor. First, I'd like to bring in my co-host, Tara Diulis. You can also see Tara right here on KGRA on Sky Tour Live with Mark D'Antonio. Tara, how you doing? How was your weekend?
Hey, hello everybody. What's up? Weekend's nice. It's cooling off. It's only down to 113 these days. So it's awesome.
I have my fireplace going in the back right up here in the Rocky Mountains. So I just, it's just hot year round there. Let's just get it over with. Every Tuesday it'll be like, it's hot. How is it in Arizona? Hot. How is it in Arizona? Hot.
Still very beautiful though. Wouldn't live anywhere else.
Arizona.
Yeah.
I love Arizona. You just stay inside all the time.
Yes, I know. It's fun. It's fun.
So what do you have to kick us off today?
Well, have you ever been out and brought some stuff home with you, such as like puppies or anything? Well, I wonder what aliens do. You know, I'm wondering if abductions or something like that, like lost humans. So today's meme, it's a vintage meme, shows the interior of a UFO. And you can see stars and space out the window, and standing there with his hands in his pocket is like an average Joe. So there are two aliens next to him, and one is saying to the other, you abducted him, you feed him.
It looks like he has a beer gut to me. I think
it does.
Give him a six-pack of brewski.
Even the aliens have the same shape. Oh, funny, Katie.
That's hilarious. That's a good one.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited to get to talk to our guests today. They have so much to share. And I want to introduce you to their cool website called Flying Disc Press. Well, this is Phil Mantle started this. And if you go there, you can go to the shop button and find all sorts of unique products that you get to customize yourself. So the thing is, you can't find these designs elsewhere anywhere. So how it works is you choose from hundreds of products and you add your own photos or their images and text, and they can print it, and you can make yourself or make it for yourself or your favorite people, make them happy with the gift. Because seriously, the holidays are coming up, right? Yeah. So this is, for instance, this is an image representing the alien abduction of Calvin Parker and Charles Hickson. This happened on October 11th in 1973 in Pascagoula, Mississippi. I know, and we're in for a treat because our guests are experts in this, and we look forward to hearing more about what actually happened. But you can get this image on their website, printed on so many items. So such as this is a square refrigerator magnet. Yes, it's really cool. And then they have how about some t-shirts or handbags? There's hoodies and tank tops and tees. And this is a fun one. Everybody needs a set of coasters.
I'm a coaster fanatic. I have coasters
Are you?
everywhere. I
I
am.
drink
I
a
need
lot
a
of.
coaster everywhere I go.
Yes, well,
I have to order
it's
some of those. I'm
it's
ordering
the
some of
proper
those.
thing. Aren't they pretty? They're cool. So,
They're really cute.
this is an image of the Roswell report that they have. Arguably, it's the most famous UFO crash of all time, but it too can be printed on all sorts of fun items, including T-shirts and hoodies and aprons, and they have children's sizes too. And again, you can't find these images anywhere else. So I encourage all of you, and let's see if I can get to this, go to flyingdiscpress.com, and you can create your own items or choose from that are already there and choose directly from their catalog. So kind of neat stuff that you can get for yourself or
Very
friends
neat.
for Christmas. And what do you think, Katie?
I love it. And it's never too early to start that Christmas wish list for sure. So yeah, I'm going to put in an order. That image is fantastic. And of course, with the sad passing of Calvin Parker,
Yes.
which we honored him last week on our show, and we'll get to talk to Dr. Irena Scott and Phil Mantle about him and his legacy. So yeah,
Wonderful.
very cool product. So I hope people go out and check out their website and order some things up and support the work they do. It's very important.
Absolutely. And they have lots of other images, not just those two. So, but lastly, remember to fuel up and stay hydrated, everyone. A lot of products hydrate, but only Fuel Up has that advanced aloe hydration, which uses aloe's immune optimizing properties to fast track nutrients into your body. And for hydration, you can feel. So visit fuelup.gg/MUFON for all sorts of special offers. And, in this heat, I'm making sure I'm always drinking. I know.
And I'm drinking hot cocoa. No, just joking. It's not that cold. Not yet.
There's never a bad time for hot cocoa, even if it's 113 out, because I am a chocoholic. So
that.
Katie, have you heard?
No, what have you heard?
Well, we're missing Shane today. Oh, have you heard? Shane's under the weather, everyone, and he really wanted to be here today. So darn it.
He was really, really, really disappointed. But Shane, we hope you get well soon, get better soon. It's never fun being sick. So take in those movies and drink that hot tea.
Hot tea. Well, we miss you. Yep.
We do miss you, Shane. Get better soon.
Yeah. So Katie, what do you have for us then?
Well, I have a case of the week. This week. So it's a little lengthy. I'm gonna need my reading glasses. And before we run the video or show the image, let me just read this to you. This is case number 116327. It occurred on May 8th of 2016. So it's a little bit older of a case, but it's a fascinating case nonetheless. Happened at 3:00 in the morning, which is important, in Fresno, California. Category 2 case. And this is what the witness had to say. He was a third truck of 4 in like a convoy running together on the highway. They left Oakland after a concert they were touring with. So this is a big convoy of and I'm curious, I wonder what band it was.
Bunch of roadies or something.
Of roadies headed, they were on tour, headed to San Diego. It was about 3:00 in the morning, and he happened to see a light shine out across in front of us, maybe 2 miles or so ahead of us. And then it went to the right, and then the light went out, and he didn't think much of it. He said, I thought at first someone was shining deer, like out hunting, but at 3 in the morning, you know what I mean? And then he saw a beam shine downward and didn't see anything else. The origin of the light looked to be about 100 feet above the ground. Then it went out. Then you could see white marker lights as it crossed the 5 and turned north on the other side and came right at them. Before it reached us, it turned back and went south and crossed back over the 5 to the west, and the lights all went out and I couldn't see it anymore. The fella in the truck in front said he saw it off the right, just sitting there hovering. That's an important little notice that it was hovering there. I saw a light shining in my passenger side window coming at me from a little behind me. I thought it was going to slam into the side of my tractor. It came straight at me. There were 3 very white lights across the front edge of this thing, shining right into my side window. It came to almost a complete stop, rotated, tipped on its edge, and slid over the top of my tractor and out over the front of my windshield. It had no visible propulsion system. It could be a new military style drone, but can drones hover without propellers or fan systems of any kind? I know this investigator who took this case well. She's in California, and she closed it as an unknown UAV. Now, what's important to note here is that, again, this is 3:00 in the morning. This is several witnesses in this convoy of big rigs. And so let's first bring up the image of this case that came. This is what the witness drew, the trucker,
Okay, I'm looking
of the
for it.
craft. And he had a good look at it. It was right outside his window.
Katie, I'm not
So,
seeing that image. I'm sorry.
oh, you're not?
So,
Hold on. Let me see.
yeah.
I think I put it up. Did I put it up top here? Hold on.
If you see it, click on it, and I'll take it down.
It's, oh, here it is. It's at the very end. I got it. I gotcha.
Oh,
Okay,
thank you.
there's it. You're welcome. I normally put that in order. I'm sorry, Tara. Anyway, so here's the bottom view as it came right up over their
I'm
truck.
sorry.
So it had these 3 light ridges on the edge and then a light in the back. They said it moved very slowly, silently. Again, it hovered, it banked, it made an abrupt turn. Now, if we run the video here, possibly a large, I won't touch any of the dials anymore. It's all yours.
That was me.
Possibly a large military drone. Again, I don't know. Let's just run that video and we'll get your opinion on it, Tara.
Here we go.
It does kind of bank like a plane.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. Wow. It was really low. You would think it was a plane, but there were no blinking lights. Now that was a
That's what
black and white image, but and it.
Yeah, that's on. So truckers are required to keep these cameras on their trucks, right? And he
Mhm.
wasn't sure if he captured. So what's interesting, this narrative, and I didn't read the whole thing because it's quite lengthy, but they talked about seeing it, and then and they had this encounter with it coming very close, hovering, and then it kind of banked off to the right, and then back over the freeway again. So this whole encounter was 4 to 5 minutes long. And again, it was witnessed by several truckers. So was it just a military craft? It didn't behave like that, according to the witness testimony. So very intriguing case. Cat 2 case closes as an unknown. So that's my case of the week. You have a Mars case you'd like to share.
Very cool. Yes. Okay. Let me get up here. So Mars, again, is the MUFON Archive Research and Reporting System. And we are so lucky that we now get to delve into the databases for these. And Katie and I and Bob's whole team of really top-notch people went through and made thousands and thousands of redactions. And this is just a short case. Today's case is a report only, so not the investigation. And it took place in San Bernardino, California, shortly before Christmas of 1975. And a sergeant in the U.S. Air Force, so credible witness, was driving on the highway around 4 p.m., which is daylight then. And he noticed what he just described as glittering to the south. So he pulled over along with a whole bunch of other people. Basically, he pulled over, and when he looked closer, he observed a dark object, which appeared to be moving slowly towards him. So the object came within 1,000 feet of the sergeant, and at which point it remained stationary in the air about 500 feet. He first thought it was a helicopter, but as it came near, the shape became more distinct. And he's trained to know what's in the sky, and especially during the daytime. He described the object as being like a clamshell with a small bolt in the front end. Never seen an image like this before.
What does clamshell remind you of? We're going to ask Phil Mantle about the clamshell. I do believe that Pascagoula was kind of clamshellish, if my recollection is correct.
So the witness drew this image, and just omit those top little lines over the bulges, but I didn't want to edit his image at all. But he described it about the size of, it was described it as midnight black, and except for occasional reflection from the central bulge, which he gave the impression that bulge had some ridges on it. And he described it as being about the size of a dime if being held at arm's length, right? Okay, so after stopping, the object slowly moved off towards the mountains and disappeared in the distance. And there were dozens of other cars who stopped in the same area observing the phenomenon, but there was no indication of the duration of the sighting or information as to the investigation or the final disposition. And this image shows an eyeball on the left looking, but the eyeball almost looks like a clamshell, but that was kind of his perspective of it as well, which is, it's neat. It's neat to see these witness drawings, and you don't have to be an artist to draw what you think you see. Yeah, but that's it. So have you ever, you talked about the Pascagoula, have you ever heard of a clamshell like that before?
Well, in that case, I do believe it's described that way from time to time. If I'm wrong, they can correct me on that. But, for me, 70s is the best decade. And in 1973, again, just a huge wave, so many cases, so many important cases. And I noticed even in you too, Tara, going through the archives, it seems like the phenomenon has changed. It seems like there were more landings, more beings on the ground and working on craft and, cases. Things being fixed. And, of course, my ranch stuff was from 1975 to 1978. So, of course, I'm very biased when it comes to decades. And the 70s for me is my favorite decade to research. And that's why I'm really excited to look into the 1973 case here too today. And for me, because there's so many close encounters and sketches of these, not only craft, but ET beings, there's so many parallels and connections that can be made. I mean, how many different species are we being visited by? And especially in the Pascagoula case, talk about an unusual looking ET, that one's very unique indeed. So I can't wait to talk more about that.
Absolutely.
We're going to catch up with Bob Sparing for International Case next week. And so I just wanted to ask you, Tara, I heard you guys celebrated your FIs there in Phoenix. Move on.
Oh, yes. We had, it's really a great organization to be involved with, Arizona MUFON, and the state director every year puts on a nice dinner for everybody, and we all go out and get to meet everybody in one room. Usually we're emailing each other or seeing each other at the meetings, and here's Stacy and Marianne and myself, and
nice.
Stacy Center is the state director, and Marianne's also a field investigator, and she's been a guest on our show with UAPPD as well. So really fun. We're so
such good friends.
Yeah, they're doing a lot. That's picking up, so it's very cool. But it's just really neat to be in the presence with a whole bunch of people that are interested in the same things you're doing, and you can ask them questions if you have, cases that are stumping you, or just get advice, or just kind of just have some fun. So it was great.
Mine, and those are those nights that fall really late because so many great things to talk about. And Colorado MUFON, we meet the second Saturday of every month, and we had a special guest, Margie Kay, come in, and she gave a fantastic talk on both fast walkers and winged aliens, which was really fascinating because I don't know a lot about Mothman. And she talked about these butterfly people from Oklahoma that were saving kids out of a tornado. I'd never heard this before. So it was a really fascinating talk. I think I have an image there of Margie Kay talking with us.
Let me look. I'm looking.
Is that
okay? I'm getting there. Here it is.
There she is. And the pterodactyl type beings. And so, went out with her after to dinner and got to know Margie a little bit. And fascinating woman with a terrific book. So that was always a great time, a great guest. And I learned a lot about these winged aliens and these cryptids. So very fascinating stuff.
Well, she's talking in this image about pterodactyls, and that's my, my nickname, pterodactyl. So
how did you get that nickname?
Though I just don't know. I'm not going to do it.
Well, without Shane here and without Bob, I think, since we have so much to talk about, how about we bring in our guests a little bit early today?
Without further ado, let's do it.
Without further ado, let me read these wonderful bios, and then we'll get on them right now. So Phil Mantle is an international UFO researcher, lecturer, and broadcaster. His books have been published in 6 different languages around the world. He is the former director of investigations for the British UFO Research Association and former MUFON representative for England. Philip has written articles and features for numerous publications around the world and has been both editor and assistant editor of High Street UFO publications. He is the founder of Flying Disc Press. Now, Dr. Irena Scott received her PhD from the University of Missouri College of Veterinary Medicine, did postdoctoral research at Cornell University, and has had a professorship at the St. Bonaventure University. The Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, employed her in PhD level GS-11 research in satellite photography, including in the Air Order of Battle section of its Photographic Interpretation Office, which involved aircraft identification with above top secret sensitive compartmented information clearances. That is fascinating. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
He was employed as a physical scientist cartographer in the DMA Aerospace Center, which is now the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and she worked at Battelle Memorial Institute. She has been sent for work-related purposes to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and has been in the secured areas, including the Blue Room. I got to ask her about this Blue Room. The Blue Room NASIC building. She was an astronomer at the Ohio State University Radio Observatory, the Big Ear, and was a correspondent for Popular Mechanics magazine. Her publications include several books, just like Phil as well, and works in scientific journals, magazines, and newspapers. Her photography has been shown on television and in magazines, books, and newspapers, and she has taken the scientific approach to the UFO phenomenon and published papers about UFO data in her peer-reviewed scientific journal. And if memory serves me correct, she played a very important role here in MUFON as well, and takes that scientific edge, which is so important in the field. So please welcome to the show, Philip Mantle and Dr. Irena Scott. Welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Thank you for being with us all the way from the UK.
Yes,
Wonderful.
and thank you for reading Irena's CV out in full. It really puts mine to shame. We've joked about this with each other before, so, you know.
And the funny thing is, too, I chopped it down even more. So, I mean, talk about impressive. I mean, Dr. Irena, oh my goodness. What an impressive background. And you too, Philip Mantle. I mean, you two, you've done so much for the field and you've researched so many different cases. And I know we're really going to be focusing on your new book that you collaborated together to work on, Beyond Reasonable Doubt, the Pascagoula Alien Abduction, which is, again, this occurred in 1973, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And 70s.
Right. And I think I had seen, I think it might have been a Facebook post that 1973 you're coming out, or your is it Kevin Randall that did a book on 1973? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I've done a number of books by Kevin, and he's a new one out on October the 1st, and it's simply called 1973, the year of UFO sightings, landings, and abductions. Because as you mentioned during your chat there, the 1970s and 1973 especially were the decade and the year for all things high strangeness. It was, the complete decade was. And so Kevin knew of our work on our book. So this is kind of a follow-on, if you like. And it's fascinating, I'm thankful I've published it and I've got a copy here, but it will be out officially on October the 1st.
All right. Everybody put that on their wish list too. But this book now, Calvin Parker, unfortunately we just recently lost him. But didn't he kind of remained in the shadows for quite some time. And it wasn't till recently that he started really talking about his case. Can you kind of walk us through? I'm sure some of our listeners are really familiar with the Pascagoula case, but others might not be. So if we can kind of, just give it an overview of the case. And then,
back in 1973, Calvin had just got engaged to his fiancée, Waynette, and he lived near Laurel in Mississippi, which is a good couple of 100 miles from Pascagoula. And he was working several jobs, and, Waynette said, "I never see you." So Calvin's father said, why don't you give Charlie a call, Charlie Hickson? Their families had grown up in parallel with each other. And he says, he's a foreman in the shipyard. He might be able to get you a job. So Calvin did. Charlie said, yeah, there's an opening, there's a job, no problem. So the idea was that Calvin would live with Charlie and his family Monday to Friday and then go home on a weekend. He was getting married in November. So this was October the 11th, 1973. And it was Calvin's first and only day working in the shipyard.
Oh,
you know,
my goodness.
so he got a job there as a welder. Everything went well that day. He was almost 19 years of age. Charlie was 42. And on the way home, Calvin had got a brand new car. So he's driving. And the one thing that both gentlemen enjoyed, of course, was fishing. They both had a love of fishing. So Charlie says, do a bit of fishing tonight. Yeah. So they got the gear, they bought some bait. And Charlie said, I'll show you where to go. So Calvin didn't know the area at all. So he directed him off Highway 90, down by the Pascagoula River, also known as the Singing River. And
why is it known as the Singing River? Does it?
That's another long story. I mean,
all right, we'll get
that's the pier on which they were on. It's an old abandoned pier. You can see the road bridge going over the river. Mm-hmm. And they passed a no entry sign. They parked the car. They fished in one spot and got, bitten by insects. So they moved to this old abandoned pier and started fishing. And they heard a little noise. And then this blue light came from behind them. Now, Calvin thought, it's the police. We're going to spend the night in jail for trespassing. I knew we shouldn't have ignored that no entry sign. Both gentlemen turned around at approximately the same time. And of course, it wasn't the police. There was an object descending, the shape of a rugby ball or a football, as you might call it, American football. It was oval shaped. Okay. Two lights at one end. It stopped about 2 feet above the ground, and this light from it was really blinding. An opening appeared, and out of which poured more light, and they had to, shield their eyes from it. And out of this opening came these three beings. Again, they didn't touch the ground. They literally, that's them. They floated across the ground, and they were described as being about 5 feet tall, no neck, bulky appearance. They have pointed protrusions out of the side of the head and one out of the front. Their arms were a bit longer, and they had either mitten or pincer-like appendages. Their legs didn't move. They were stuck together all the time. They were grey in colour, and they described their skin, if that's what it was, as that like that of an elephant, grey and wrinkly. Oh. Two got hold of Charlie, at which point he felt like a prick in his forearm. He was paralyzed, but he was relaxed. One got over Calvin, and they took them into this thing. Charlie went to the right, Calvin to the left. And Calvin said they placed him on a transparent table. This creature, he just calls these creatures the big ugly ones. It stood in the corner. He said almost like a robot. And he felt this presence from behind him, and another being appeared, which was female, almost pretty much like a human female, apart from she had long middle fingers. And she opened Calvin's mouth, poked her fingers in. At one point, they removed his lower clothing and his shoes and socks. And Calvin said they stuck something in my foot, and it hurt. And he felt almost as if his blood was being drained from him, and it was being replaced by something else. And Charlie had a similar experience. These things came out of the ceiling and zoomed around him as if taking pictures or things of that nature. And they were then picked up by these ugly guys and put back out on the pier. And they watched this thing, literally fly away. Both guys were extremely traumatized. Calvin more than Charlie. Charlie had been in the army and had fought in Korea and had been under fire as well. So they decided, we're not going to tell anybody. Bearing in mind, Calvin's due to get married the following month. He thought my father-in-law will never let me marry my fiance, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They go to the car. I remember this is a brand new car. As they open the passenger side, the window is completely shattered and just falls out. Calvin gets in to drive it. It will not start. It took them about 20 attempts to get the car started. And then they finally got going. And then Charlie had a change of heart. He said, no, we have to tell somebody. What if these things come back? What if it's an invasion? What if they, you know? So Calvin agreed but on one condition. He says, well, I'll say I saw this thing and I saw these creatures, but he said, I want to say I passed out at that point and can't remember anything else because I don't want to talk about it. You know, he was so traumatized. So they pulled in at a little shop that had a payphone, and they first phoned nearby Keesler Air Force Base. And they just said, we're not in the UFO business anymore, you know, ring the police. So they rang the police and they said, stay there. We'll send a car out to get you. So they did send a car out. They gave him a sobriety test. And then they followed them into town. So they ended up at Jackson County Sheriff's Department, where they were interviewed separately at first. And quite frankly, they weren't believed, you know. So what the sheriff and his deputies did, they put Charlie and Calvin in a room together, and the deputies said, "I'm just going to get some coffee, guys. I'll leave you alone." And what they didn't know, there was a secret tape recorder in the desk next to them. So the deputy came back a few minutes later, took something out of the drawer. They didn't know what it was, and they thought, we'll catch them now. They're going to be laughing and joking, these two guys, you know. But of course, when they played it back, they weren't. Calvin is crawling up the wall, and Charlie is bemused. I mean, totally bemused. So now the law enforcement changed their attitudes towards them. They tended to think, you know, something's happened to these two guys. So they said, you know, get yourself off home. And Charlie and Calvin said, well, okay, but please don't tell anyone. So the sheriff agreed. So they go home. The next morning they get up, they drive to work. Calvin notices there's a few extra cars in the parking lot. And immediately they're summoned to the boss's office. And he said, what have you two been up to? You know, we've got journalists here. The phone will not stop ringing. We can't get any work done. So they tell him. And he gives them the assistance of their lawyer, you know, company lawyer if they need it. They have no idea how the story got out. Not a clue. They blame the sheriff. He turned up. He said, it wasn't me. So they went to the Singing River Hospital for a checkup. They were fine, apart from being, you know, traumatized and nervous. And somebody mentioned radiation. So ironically, they were then driven to Keesler Air Force Base, which had turned them away on the telephone the night before. They were checked for radiation, which was negative. But the officers in charge at the time said, well, come on in, gentlemen, and tell us what happened to you. So they did, you know. And we know what they said because Keesler Air Force Base had the use of a stenographer. So they wrote every word down. And we have in the book, we have a 17-page transcript of that meeting, plus all the officers' names, everybody who was there. There's nothing redacted. We also have the transcript of the secret tape that was done in the sheriff's office. So
that's amazing.
So this is information that came in literally, you know, right at the time. And whilst Calvin and Charlie were at the Singing River Hospital, Sheriff Diamond gave an interview to a local journalist. And we have that interview. It's, you know, and so we transcribed that as well for the book. So it's literally the day after, and you know, the sheriff is in support of these gentlemen, and to this day we've no idea how the story got out. It wasn't Charlie or Calvin. The sheriff said it's not me. Calvin thought maybe it's somebody who had one of those police scanners, perhaps heard it. And what is interesting, we have been in contact with the police dispatcher who was on duty that night. So he's the gentleman who took the call from Charlie. And he said, I took another 50 plus calls that night of people reporting UFOs. And he said, when I went back to the police station, there were people there in person reporting it as well. So that is, in a nutshell, the beginning of the case. Charlie was able to embrace it. Calvin wanted nothing to do with it. I mean, it literally sent him off his head. So eventually he disappeared off back home. Like I said, was 200 miles away, worried that his future father-in-law wasn't going to let him get married. He ended up in hospital one night with a bit of a breakdown. He did get married, and Wayne was with him up until the day he sadly died in August of this year. And that was the story that we had. This was Calvin's first book. I located him in 2017, 2018, because I got the rights to Charlie Hickson's book that he wrote with William Mendez in 1983. I was going to republish it. And I wanted an interview, if I could, with Calvin. And, it's a long story, but eventually Calvin said, well, I'd like to leave a legacy, Philip. He'd already been seriously ill before I contacted him. And I said, well, what legacy do you want to leave? He said, well, I want to tell my story. Well, I said, the best way to do it is in a book, because nobody can change it. It's your words. So we agreed to write the book on one condition, and that was that I didn't change a word of it, which I didn't, Nice. And we were up and running, and that's how it all began.
Right. And then, I mean, just really quickly, you're clear in the UK, he's here in the States, and Dr. Irena Scott, that's probably, did you really work to kind of bridge that location gap?
Absolutely. Because when Calvin, stepped out into the public domain, published his book, other the people we either located or then came forward. And what happened was Calvin did a little 8-minute special for a local journalist, and it was filmed, and they did it as a newspaper feature as well. The little film at one point ended up on YouTube, and I was reading the many comments underneath it, and one of the comments was, my mother and father were on the opposite side of the river that night, and they saw the UFO too. Now, thankfully, this person had used her real name. I managed to locate her on Facebook, explain who I was, and said, could we speak to your mum and dad, please? So she said, I'll get back to you. Came back. Yeah, my mum and dad were, Jerry and Maria Blair. Here's their telephone number. I spoke to them. That's Maria on the left, Jerry, when they were first married, in the early 70s. And I started speaking to them. She said they'd seen the lights. They'd also seen this creature in the water. That's Maria now. And I briefly spoke to Jerry. But I needed somebody in the States. I'd already published 3 of Irena's books, so I knew of her background. And so I asked Irena if she would come on board and assist with this. And it was Irena that did much of the, shall we call, discussions with Maria and Jerry. Irena, do you tell them how things progressed from that initial call I made?
Well, this was my very first interview of anybody, and I didn't really have any background or anything. So I called her, and she told about what happened to him. She and her husband were in a car, and they were by a pier, which happened to be across from where Charlie and Calvin were, but they didn't know who they were or anything then. And there was a ship at the end of the pier, and they were waiting for a supervisor to come because they were then going out and going out to supply some oil rigs or something. But the supervisor was late, and so Jerry went to sleep, and Maria was watching what was going on, and she said she saw this airplane. This was 2 or 3 years, some time ago. she saw this airplane. I mean, when I talked to her, and she said it was behaving in an odd manner, that it just kept flying around, but it wasn't going anyplace. And she kept thinking the pilot's lost, or the pilot's searching for something. Or what's the pilot doing? And then Jerry decided to take his clothes to the ship, and it was about 9 o'clock. And he walked down the pier first, and she was behind him. And she said this thing that looked like a man flopped up on the pier right in front of her, and then flopped back down the water. And she couldn't figure it out because he didn't come up for air or anything again. And she thought he'd have to come up for air. And she was really scared. And so they went on down to the boat. And then she said she came back at 12 o'clock at night. And she was scared, and she ran to her car. And that seemed funny too, because they were newlyweds, but I couldn't figure out what they were doing for 3 hours on the boat. But anyway.
Newlyweds.
I wonder.
But anyway, she was very, very emotional about this thing that flopped up on the pier right in front of her. And she was really emotional. And also I kept wondering about the hours of how long it took her to get back there too. And so I talked and wrote to her for about 2 years. And I could just tell how emotional she was about this thing that flopped up on the thing beside her. And we just kept talking, but not getting anywhere because she couldn't figure out what was going on. But I could tell she was really emotional about it, and really scared when she came back. So then her husband, unfortunately, became very ill. And I guess he didn't have anything to lose after a while. I mean, he'd been a skeptic up until then. And when I talked to him on the phone, all he'd said is that he saw a big splash. I think it was at the end of the pier, I'm not sure. And thought it was a blimp or something. And then he handed the phone to her real fast. And she said he was a skeptic and he didn't think anything about UFOs or anything. Thought she was nuts. And so anyway, then right before he went for a serious operation, he told her that they had been abducted. And he remembered it, and that they had been on board, and he'd been on board, and just told a little bit, and then he went on a ventilator and couldn't talk, and so she just had to guess. But she taped that, and she had him talk to Philip about it. And so this put a whole new light on the whole thing, because her feelings might have been due to a possible abduction. And then she began to remember more after that, especially with hypnosis, that this thing flopped up and sort of hypnotized her and took things out of her mind and things.
That's Maria under hypnosis. The lady laid out is Maria Blair. The lady sat next to her is the hypnotherapist. And literally, as Irena said there, Jerry made Maria phone me from the hospital. He was sat on his hospital bed the day before his operation and told me what had happened. And then Maria phoned him on the cell phone as well. Just a short clip, which we have, because he wasn't sure if he was going to survive the operation. He did. And as Irena said, he revealed a bit more to her. And even though he was seriously ill, Maria was as mad as hell with him, because
he kind of kept it from her all those years.
All these years. When I first spoke to Maria on the telephone, she said to me then, she said, I often wondered if something similar hadn't happened to us. I said, why do you say that, Maria? She said, well, I have these vague recollections of something, almost like I can make it out of my peripheral vision, but I can't quite see it, But she had little flashes. And that's why she was so emotional about it. She knew there was something there, but she couldn't quite grasp it. Sadly, Jerry died. They both met Calvin beforehand and became friends. And then there's Maria and Calvin down by the river. And she mentioned the possibility of hypnosis. She knew Calvin had been under hypnosis before. And I said no at the first time because she was still very upset about losing her husband. She mentioned it again. And I said, okay, let's see what we can do. So I went online and looked at a number of practitioners around the area, told them nothing in particular, just asking. And one lady by the name of Crystal Slaughter says, yeah, I can do regressive hypnosis. And she was also willing to come out to a location. So the hypnosis took place last year at Calvin Parker's house. Because Calvin could reassure Maria and we didn't tell the hypnotherapist anything. I mean, not a thing, just a date, a time, and a location, and that was it. She put Maria under hypnosis. We had it filmed professionally. You saw a still from the film just then there. So this is in Calvin's house. We have a close-up camera and we have a wide-angle camera. And again, she was very emotional under the hypnosis. Sometimes it took her a while to reply. And she recounted some of the bits and pieces that Jerry had told her. And it's got to a stage where she said that these creatures were taking her eggs. And they were interested in human DNA. And they wanted to create children that could walk among us and wouldn't be recognized.
Wow.
And you should have seen the look on the hypnotherapist's face, because she had no idea what the subject matter was at all, And so again, we recorded all this. And in the new book, there is a full transcript of the hypnosis session. It's not always easy to get the emotion, but it's all there.
Wow.
And make of it what you will. Then a few weeks later, we used the same hypnotherapist to put Calvin Parker under hypnosis. Calvin had been under before, so he knew the score. So basically, Calvin wasn't reliving the events. He was just telling you what he could remember. But this... this is a little important point. What I did this time, I gave the hypnotherapist a couple of questions to ask because she now knew the subject matter. And I said, ask Calvin, before anything happens, he's standing on the pier, looking out across the river with his rod and line, just describe what he can see. So he does. He says, yeah, I can see there. He's on the end of that pier. He can see the bridge that's there on the left. You could see this boat going out to sea. He even could tell you the company name that was on the side of this boat. And right at the end of his answer to this little question, he says, I see two figures on the other side of the river. Are those two figures Mr. and Mrs. Blair? Perhaps it's too far to see them. Or is it someone else? We really don't know. And then, so we posed that question in the book. And again, Calvin's full transcript of the hypnosis is in the new book. Sorry, somebody was trying to ask us a question.
No, that was part of the question, and I was wondering if she described the creatures or the beings.
She finds it difficult because she's so emotional, but they were similar, if not the same, as encountered by Charlie and Calvin. And there was Irena will confirm this. Didn't Mr. Blair have a problem with one of them in particular, Irena?
Yeah, he said that he kept his eye on one of them. They swam back toward the other pier where Calvin and Charlie were, and he said he was keeping his eye, and he pointed to his eye on the one, and he called the one a doctor. And she thought that maybe this doctor thing had done something to him. that, she said maybe he was too physical with him or something, that he had done something to him that made him real nervous about him. And he paid attention to that one particularly.
Maria is of the opinion, and he says it's his only opinion, that this encounter was meant for them that night and not Charlie and Calvin. That Charlie and Calvin were like collateral damage, so to speak. Because remember, they only decided to go fishing whilst driving home from work that night. And just to show you Calvin's outlook and sense of humor, he said, Philip, I got hired, fired, and abducted on the same day.
Wow. Trifecta.
Yeah, but with Maria and Jerry, their departure on the boat was pre-planned. It was just late. Its supervisor was late, but the actual date, time, and location was already pre-planned. It's just the way Maria. Tries to get to grasp of the things.
Right. It's fascinating to me. I mean, Maria mentioned, or you had mentioned that she said that, one of these beings went into the water and she's like panicking because it needs to come up for air. So maybe that would be, you would be completely panicked. I mean, is somebody drowning? Do you jump in? Right. And then the fact, is it Jerry, her husband? He kind of denied, and I'm a skeptic. You hear that time and time again from abductees and contactees.
What is really interesting, that first little post on YouTube that we saw was from their youngest daughter. The little bit I missed, she said, my mother and father were on the other side of the river that night, and they too saw the UFO. She then added, but they were not abducted. So they hadn't even told her daughter, or she has two daughters. They were totally unaware of it until Mr. Blair decided to almost provide us with a deathbed confession, and it's clearly didn't like talking about it. But he said the reason he kept it from Maria, he was just trying to protect her, and she understood that. Yeah. But on the other hand, she was still as mad as hell with him, for not telling her. So,
no, I think that's an important factor. These are people who are not out trying to, make a living with their story or trying to. I mean, they obviously had an encounter, an experience that they never forgot about. They were traumatized by it, and possibly, had blocks about, talking about it. And we hear this time and time again, and I find that really fascinating.
Well, once Jenny started talking, Maria could make more sense out of these little clips and bits and pieces that she could remember. And
were they coming through to her in like a dream state?
No, she could remember it, but it's sort like she said, when it turned out, when she was under hypnosis, it wasn't in a peripheral vision. She had her eyes closed, and she squeezed her eyes open a little bit. And that's what she was seeing. She still had she was squinting basically, but she could make things out enough. And we've had people already come forward and say, oh, these two people were just looking for their 15 minutes of fame. No, they didn't. They didn't come forward. It was just a little comment made on YouTube that I happened to read. And that was by their daughter. Had I not read it, had their daughter not posted it, we would probably never have found out about them whatsoever. Irena.
And she didn't have any idea. I mean, maybe some vague idea, like he said, of being abducted or anything like that. She just had a lot of feelings about the thing that flopped out of the water and being terrified. But, I talked to her a long time, thinking there might have been an abduction here. And, she didn't have a recall of that at all at that time for about 2 years, other than just some vague feeling.
Right.
So there you go. They didn't step out, into the limelight. That we located them, and that's how Irena and I started working together. We were assisted at one point by a gentleman called Douglas Wilson.
I know Doug very well.
Yeah.
Yes, so Douglas is in the book, including a photograph of him, a very handsome man with a beard, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And we've been, we were ever so thankful So again, when we spoke to other witnesses, rather than have this strange sounding fella from across the Atlantic calling at different times, I could never get the time zone right. It was much better that we had a lady from the United States ringing at the correct time, and it just seemed to work. And that's it.
Yeah. No, Doug Wilson was the Colorado State Director before he handed over the reins to moi. And he is a wonderful mentor and a wonderful guy. And yes, very debonair.
Well, if you speak to him again, please tell him a big thank you from me and Irena.
Yeah, he showed up a couple months ago at a meeting. I was so happy to see him. So I'll definitely say hello to him for you. We only have about a minute before break. And before we go to break, and there's so much to unpack here, I really, after break, we're going to play my new game, An Evening on Earth with an Extraterrestrial. But after that, I want to get into talking about, we know I always called him the Michelin Man. He looks like the Michelin Man to me, with the tires, the ugly ones. But I want to delve into this other female a little bit more and learn more about this female character, because I don't know a lot about that. But I want to mention too, before we go to break, you both have wonderful websites. Dr. Irena Scott has a great website where you can find so many of her books and information, as well as Philip Mantle. So I hope you guys can go and check out their website. There is irenascott.com. And so many great publications there. And then, of course,
on Irena's, the first 15 pages are her CV.
Check that out during the break, you all, and we'll see you back in a few minutes.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
MUFON is the voice of thousands of like-minded people who want to see change. We speak up against UFO secrecy. We engage governments and agencies around the world on the topic. We share information with the public through our journal, website, newsletter, social media, and even our own TV channel. When you join MUFON, you add your voice to the cause. Few things are more important in our time than understanding the UFO question. Join MUFON. Find your friends.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm going to take it for the energy. I'm going to take it for the play. I'm going to take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a Feel the Difference money-back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
All right, we're on a short little delay from time to time. You know, it's retrograde. Are we out of that yet? Anyway, we are back. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I want to start just a little fun thing I started, an evening on Earth with an extraterrestrial. We're going to start with Dr. Irena Scott on this. So we're going to pretend an extraterrestrial comes down on Earth. Could have been the ugly guys. I don't know. Whichever species of alien you want to pick. But first of all, where on Earth would you want to have this evening with an extraterrestrial? One place on the planet you'd like to visit?
Well, I'd like to have a whole lot of witnesses. So like Times Square might be good.
Oh, good answer. That's a great answer. Times Square. And what food would you like this extraterrestrial to try?
Blueberries? I don't know.
Blueberries. Blueberry
Love
pancakes. I hear extraterrestrials love blueberry pancakes, or at least pancakes. There's some interesting
Nice.
pancake cases out there. Okay, and a song or music, what would you have played?
Oh, maybe something by Beethoven, like Ode to Joy or something.
Oh, very
that's beautiful.
classical. All right, that's very, and you're going to recommend a film. He wants to see a film while he's visiting Earth. What film? Contact, one of my favorites. Jodie Foster. All right, good answer. And the one question you would ask an extraterrestrial, what would that be?
Well, to explain everything in the universe to me.
Oh, I love it.
Like in the movie Paul, where he does the download, then you get the you need that.
Just explain the whole thing.
I love it. And Phil, where on Earth would you meet your extraterrestrial?
Yeah, I'd take him back to where I was born and raised. It's a small mining village, and still remains small to this day. And I'd ask, in return, what was it like where you were born? Anything remotely similar? I can't imagine there would be, but you never know.
You never know. You never know. I've read some old books. They're kind of fun to read, these really old publications from like the late 40s, early 50s. And they describe like some very Earth-like living rooms with photographs. And I'm just like, maybe they do live like us. So what food would you like to serve your extraterrestrial? Food for the extraterrestrial. What would you serve him?
Well, my favourite is a tradition in the UK against fish and chips. Can't beat it. Cannot. Sorry, I've tried them in America and they're not the same. I am dreadfully sorry. And again, I'd say, would he fancy me buying you some? Have a taste of these.
You're absolutely correct. I've been to London once, and I made sure I got the fish and chips. There's nothing like it. And if you serve an extraterrestrial fish and chips, they're going to visit often because it is so delicious. What music and what film?
Music would be my favourite rock band, which is an English band called Status Quo. Sadly, they never made it, big in the States, so you don't know what you're missing. And I'd ask the ET, do you have music where you come from?
Right.
Maybe you don't. And my favourite film is Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston. And again, do they have entertainment and movies where he comes from?
Those are all excellent questions and excellent choices. Yeah, I often wonder that too. Do they have entertainment? Do they have music and senses of humor? I think humans are very unique in that regard. We're so creative and talented. I wonder if they are too.
Free
I don't know.
time.
These ugly ones, maybe not so much, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're really great on the saxophone. I don't know. They don't have mouths. What kind of instruments are they playing?
That's hilarious.
Oh my goodness. Great answers, guys. So you're talking about the ugly ones, and not a lot, or at least for me, I don't know a lot about this female. Can you talk about what Kelvin says about this female extraterrestrial, how
Yeah.
she was described, what her role perhaps was, these kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, Calvin said he was lying on this transparent table or bed, whatever you want to call it, at a certain angle. And this big ugly thing was kind of stood to attention away in the corner, not moving.
Sorry.
And it said at first he felt this presence from behind him. He heard a little noise, and he, for whatever reason, he thought it was a female presence. And of course, this creature appeared. She looked pretty much like, a human female, apart from the middle fingers. They were exceptionally long. So she pressed his chin down to open his mouth, because Calvin is paralyzed at this point, can only move his eyes. And she puts this finger up inside him, up into his nasal cavity, and it hurt. So he wasn't best pleased, because Calvin, in his family, he was the one with the muscle. He didn't start a lot of fights, but he certainly knew how to finish them if he did.
Right.
He was a strong guy.
So did he fight her back?
Well, this is what happened. He's lying there helpless at this time. He's paralyzed. And as I said, they removed his clothing, they stuck something in his foot. And then at one point, he's getting his clothes back on, and the paralysis is gone for an instant. And he got this female around the head and literally banged her head against the wall. And she made some kind of motion to the ugly creature, which got hold of Calvin. He was paralyzed again, and then was taken back out onto the pier and deposited there. What we don't cover in this book only deals with the events in 1973. Is that in 1993, Calvin went out fishing again, this time on a little boat on his own. And he said he was only going for a couple of hours, so he just took a bottle of water and a sandwich to eat. And again, cutting a long story short, he had another encounter. He ended up speaking to a friend of his who knew a little bit about the subject. And he says, do you know, Bud Hopkins is speaking at a UFO convention in Florida this weekend. I think you ought to speak to him. So they literally got in the car. They drove the 12 hours to Florida unannounced. And the convention was in a hotel. Calvin wouldn't go in. He sent his friend. His friend found Bud, explained what was the situation. So Bud says, here's my hotel key. I'll meet you in my room in an hour or 2 hours, whatever. He did. And he actually put Calvin under hypnosis. And he talked all about this 1993 encounter. Calvin this time said, he got really mad. Really mad. He said, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
He says, if there's a door on this thing, I'm going out of it. And she's coming with me. So he managed to somehow get loose of this paralysis and grab hold of this female, and then try and beat the living daylights out of her.
Oh.
Wow.
But what was interesting, under the hypnosis, Bud said, you ever see this woman before? Seen her any other time, any other place? And Calvin recounted 2 incidents when he was a young man. And the common denominator amongst all these 4 encounters was this female. She was in all 4 of them.
So maybe the encounter was meant for Calvin Parker.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And I won't use the words that he called her, but they weren't very polite. Yeah. But what is curious as well, he said that at one point she looked as if she was wearing some kind of mask.
Oh.
And then during the first the encounter in 1973, she showed Calvin images. He calls this a curse, and he did not like talking about it. He didn't tell me for quite a while. He said, I saw images of our past, present, and future. And specifically the images of the future. He said it was a curse. He said, we're going to be ravaged by, war, man against man, and disaster, and so on. And I mean, the whole thing disturbed Calvin. That disturbed him even more, and he didn't like talking about it. He called it a curse. And of course, we found out that Bud Hopkins' archives were now held by Dr. David Jacobs, because Bud has since passed away. Contacted Dr. Jacobs, only gave us a tape of the hypnosis session. So we have it all. And then we found out that Charlie Hickson had been regressed by Bud Hopkins twice in the 1980s, one in 1985 and once in 1989. And again, we got the transcripts we got the copies of the tapes and transcribed them. And believe it or not, Charlie had a couple of encounters when he was a young fella as well. Calvin wasn't involved. Calvin wasn't there. And Charlie became what we'd probably call a contactee after the events in 1973. He got messages. He thought something fantastic was going to happen on Earth. And of course, it didn't. But nonetheless, you know, he was the torchbearer for the case, and he died in 2011. And Calvin remained hidden pretty much until 2018.
Wow. So do we know if either Calvin or Charles had family histories? I mean, if they were both contacted earlier, did they have family members that were also contacted?
Well, I think it was. I'm not sure if it was Charlie said that. One of his parents. I think it was his mum mentioned something, but nothing in any great detail. What did happen though? A few years after the 1973 event, they were coming back from visiting his mother-in-law in the car. So the whole family were there, and they had another UFO sighting. And Charlie wanted to pull the car over and get out because he thought, they're here again. I'm going to go meet them again. But his family wouldn't allow it, wouldn't let him get out of the car. And what is interesting for our book, Irena did this, not me, but she interviewed Eddie Hickson, who's Charlie's son. Can you remember some of the things that Eddie told you, Irena?
Yeah, well, one thing he emphasized was that Charlie wasn't trying to make money, and he emphasized that over and over, that Charlie didn't want to give the impression of making money because he wanted people to believe what he said.
Right.
And I asked him what Charlie thought about UFOs before all this happened. He said once when he was a kid, he asked his father, and his father said, "Oh, there's nothing to it." So he wasn't like a believer or anything when any of this happened. And he seemed real sincere. Eddie really liked his father, and he was in the Army when it happened. And then I think he heard about it.
I think Eddie was in the Marines, was he not, Irene? He was a Marine.
And he heard about it, but he heard about it indirectly. And then saw his father. But he was very adamant that his father wasn't making money, and his father wanted to say that because it actually happened and he was telling the truth. And one other thing, you asked about the family. Well, I think, I could be wrong, I think Calvin's father worked in Area 51 once.
Yes, he did.
Really?
He did.
Connection there.
Yeah, he was. I think it was in construction. They were building something there, and he was involved. I think Eddie also said that his mother was more afraid than Charlie, because she thought, what if they come back for him? You know, what if this happens again? And he said she was forever sort of looking over her shoulder. So, you know, whilst Charlie and Calvin were traumatized, it also affected their family as well.
Oh, sure.
And I don't know, I like for Calvin, I don't know if anyone remembers the 1980s series of The Hulk, where the Hulk, Dr. David Banner, you know, he
Bill Bixby.
Yeah, and they are hunted by a journalist, and every time the journalist gets near, they pack up and move to the next town and so on. Calvin did that in real life. Literally. When they got married, he spent a year in the Royal Marines himself. And again, he doesn't talk about that a lot because a journalist caught up with him And he went to see his commanding officer, and he says, well, perhaps it's better if you leave, son. So, he got, a nice discharge, but it made him angry. And he literally went from one town to the next with his wife and then their family. And there was a point where he even used a false name. And his boss called him into the office one day and he says, "You're fired." He said, "Well, what for?" He said, "Well, your name doesn't match your social security number."
Oh, he lied on his application.
Yeah, he used a false name. And how it all came about, just before I contacted Calvin, him and his wife had been to a funeral of a friend. And as they're coming out of the place, they signed a book of condolence. So Calvin wrote Calvin Parker. And the people behind him, when they saw his name, they're doing the wink, wink, nudge, nudge, And Calvin didn't like that because it was disrespectful to his dead friend. And his wife, Waynette, said, "Well, why don't you write your story down so everybody knows what it is?" Even then, she didn't know the full story. He hadn't told her the full story. So he says, "Yes, darling, I'll write a book, darling, no problem." And then, of course, a couple of weeks later, there's this strange sounding fella from across the Atlantic on the phone to him. And he pretty much did the same to me. He was very polite, but he didn't tell me an awful lot. And all I wanted was an interview. And then I called him again and he says, "Well, Philip, I've been thinking about writing my own book." So I sent him a contract. And that's it. That was the first one. And I said, "Look, if you want to leave a legacy, write it down. Nobody can change it then." So we agreed, and the rest was history.
Yeah.
And he wished he'd done it sooner, because back in 1973, there were a lot of people made accusations against Charlie and Calvin, or they made fun of them.
Was Phil Klass one of those people? I know back in the 70s with Travis Walton, he had to fight Phil Klass in that. And it was a different time back then. People really, it really could affect people in very negative ways.
I'll give you a story about Philip Klass. Charlie Hickson was doing a TV show somewhere, and he asked Calvin to come along, not to go on, just to meet him.
Yeah.
I can't remember where the location was. So Calvin said, "Okay, I haven't seen you in a long time, Charlie." So he turned up, and Calvin said he was supposed to be going on television with some kind of scientist. And when he got there, this scientist had refused to go on the television show with Calvin. Oh. And this had all been arranged by a journalist. And this journalist said, "Come on, guys, look, I'll take you over the road for some dinner." Calvin is totally bemused. He's no idea who this fella is. He doesn't know what the problem is. So they go across the road to a restaurant, sit down. By this time, Charlie and this scientist aren't even looking at each other. But it wasn't a scientist as such. It was Philip Klass.
Oh, no.
So they sat down at dinner. And this journalist, I don't know who it was, he said to Philip Klass, "Why would you not go on television with Charlie Hickson?" And he says, "Because he's a liar." So Calvin said, "Well, if you're calling him a liar, you're calling me a liar." And Calvin made it quite plain to Mr. Klass that if he called him a liar again, that he might regret it. Oh. How can I put it? In a physical nature. Because Calvin said, "I don't care if anybody doesn't believe me."
Yeah.
But if anybody calls me a liar.
Like a tough guy, this Calvin.
So they got thrown out of the restaurant after that. And Calvin said, "We went home that night without any dinner." But what we did, again, in our research, myself and Irena, I found Philip Klass's whole file on the Pascagoula case. It's 160 some pages long.
Wow.
We published in another book an unpublished 3-page article by Philip Klass about the Pascagoula case. And in this file, there is no research whatsoever. All he's trying to do is to try and find some dirt that he can throw at Charlie or Calvin. Mainly Charlie, because Calvin couldn't contact him. And of course, he couldn't find any. You know, he couldn't find any whatsoever. And he was desperate at times, you know.
Yeah.
And so we published that article. And on Calvin has a website, you know, it's just Calvin /Parker.com. The whole Philip Class file is on that website.
Oh, is it on there?
It's
Oh, interesting.
all there. So
Cool.
you don't have to believe me. They can go and read it for themselves.
Cool.
And but Calvin left Mr. Class in in no doubt of what would happen if he called him a liar again. You know.
Oh.
Well,
But
somebody had to put that guy in his place, because that's
Well,
what
yeah.
he was. That's what he was a pro at. He just looked for things to try and shoot stories down or discredit people.
Yeah.
Even Travis Walton. And what's interesting, looking back at some of, you know, his reports or what he spewed out there to the world, some of the things that he used to take people down, actually, now that we know more about the phenomenon, actually adds credit to their cases, and it's almost like a positive thing, not a negative. So
I think
that's
Irena
really great that Calvin did.
wanted to say something there.
Oh, he acted like he was a scientist, and he wasn't a scientist at all. He was a writer. But he would always say, well, this is a scientific opinion. And like he had all the facts behind him and everything.
Right.
I was with Jenny Zeidman once on a radio show here, and she got attacked by Phil Klass on the Coin helicopter case, which happened right here. And he came up with a lot of things, and Dr. Heineck said, well, this is wrong. It can't do that, and it can't do this, and so on. And like Phil Klass said that this was just a meteor. Well, whatever happened, the helicopter rose a whole lot of feet in the air when it was about to crash, when the thing went over, and there was a green light in it, and everything else that wouldn't be caused by a meteor. And there's a whole lot of things that he just didn't. He just went for any explanation that sounded like it would convince people that wasn't true or scientific or anything else.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, with the Pascagoula case, I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Blair weren't the only witnesses, of course. There was a gentleman right back in 1973 called Jerry Booth. Went on, well, we have some old archive film of Mr. Booth saying, I stepped outside one night and there's this thing, you know. But one of the criticisms was that, you know, there is the road bridge, and we saw on that photograph, nobody on the road bridge has come forward. Well, they did. There's a chap called Mr. Rusty Anderson, Charles Rusty Anderson. And he said he was driving over the bridge that night with his wife, and they're coming home from some function, and he saw this thing down below it, which, of course, is the general area where Charlie and Calvin were. He says it was whitish blue. He called it an aircraft because he didn't. That was the only frame of reference he knew, and he said it was so low he thought it was going to crash.
Wow.
And I don't know if it was the next day or the day after. He went to visit a relative who lived down by the river, and I said, "You'd never guess what I saw the other night." And he said, "Oh, yes, I will." Now, another gentleman, Calvin, was having a book signing in Pascagoula, and he sat down with his wife Waynette, and this gentleman came up. "Can I buy a book, Mr. Parker?" "Yeah, please sign it." And he said, "Oh, by the way, I saw the UFO that night." And he walked away. Luckily for us, somebody was taking photographs. So we had a photo of this gentleman buying the book. So we put it on social media. We were contacted, and they said, "Well, I know who that is." I said, "Well, could you ask him if he'll speak to us?" They came back and said, "Yes, he will." His name was Mr. Lewis Lee.
Oh, cool.
That night, Mr. Lee was working in the shipyard on the other side of the river. He was a crane operator. And he said, "Philip, I got in my cab, just about 10 feet off the ground." And he said, as soon as I got in it, you could see this damn thing out across the river. So I'd never seen anything like it, you know. And he watched it for a good while. And the only reason he took his eyes off it, because there's a colleague down below shouting at him, you know, "Look what you're doing." And when he turned back, he had gone. And so I said to Mr. Lee, did you tell anybody about this? He said, "Well, I told my family." And I said, did you report it? He said, well, Philip, this is 1973. There is no Ghostbusters to call in 1973.
Who are you going to call?
And sadly, so we interviewed him. Irena's spoken to him. The testimony of both those gentlemen are in the book. Sadly, Mr. Lee has since passed away, so we have pay a little respects to him in the book. But what was interesting as well, Mr. Anderson, Irena and I have been involved in making a new documentary with a British production company that should be out this year. And they were in the States last year filming, and they interviewed Mr. Anderson, amongst many others. So we put a little post on his Facebook page saying, I've been interviewed.
Oh.
And then one of the comments underneath it was a lady saying, oh, I saw the UFO that night. So I contacted her. She's called Pamela Rayleigh Eves. And she told me she was putting the children to bed that night, and she went to close the curtains. It looks out over the river, and she saw this blue thing in the distance.
Oh.
Only a brief sighting. What was interesting, that she and Rusty, Mr. Anderson, are actually cousins.
How funny.
Interesting.
Small world.
I have to tell you.
They didn't know of each other's sighting until he put that little post about being interviewed.
That's amazing. You are making me reconsider reading people's comments, because I've always been one to never look at comments because I don't want to see any negativity. I don't want to allow it into my world. Like nothing negative. I'm always afraid, but you wouldn't have found these people if you didn't read it.
Irena and I did a television show here a couple of weeks back. It's called The Unexplained with Howard Hughes.
Neat.
And that's been put on YouTube. But I think I looked just before joining you ladies tonight, and I think they'd had over 300,000 views of it. And there is a long list of comments. And I thought, well, I know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow, you know.
Getting some reading.
But that's how we've managed to find people. You know, a lot of people haven't stepped forward. They might make a brief comment somewhere. And then I have this terrier, this Ohio terrier across the Atlantic. She's called Dr. Irena Scott. Irena, here's the details, you know, please speak to them. And I don't think hardly anybody has turned us down. And Irena, how many people have you interviewed for our new book?
Oh, I've interviewed probably 30 or more.
Wow.
Yeah. And we have approximately...
I know the kind of work that takes.
It is.
That's amazing to me.
We have 40 witnesses in the book. We have 40.
I can't wait to see it.
Well, you know, and what is also fascinating, and it's kind of topical at the moment, just a few weeks later, I think it was November the 6th, 1973, in the same stretch of water on the Pascagoula River, just a little bit further out, where the water's a little bit deeper, there were three little skiffs went out fishing, and they used nets. And they saw something under the water. It was circular, it was illuminated, and it was in sections. And they said it looked like one of the old Second World War parachutes when you view it from the top, and it was segmented.
Wow.
They got up close to it, and they were able to hit it with an oar, and it went clunk.
Really?
This is
wow.
And they played cat and mouse around the river with it. Eventually, they went to the Coast Guard station in person and reported it. And the Coast Guard sent a boat out. They saw it, and they hit it with an oar, and it also went clunk. Now, in the book, we have the full story of this. We've located the Coast Guard report on this, which is all there. Everybody named, and it says in that report, this object remained unidentified. A guy from the Navy came out the next day, and luckily for us, they put all the witnesses on the quayside and took a photograph of them.
Oh, cool.
And on the back of the photograph is all their names.
Oh,
their
good
ages.
record.
And so we got that photograph from a colleague. Somebody said to us, oh, you know, so-and-so's got a picture of these people, Philip. No. Contacted them. Yeah, here you go. So again, we use social media. Within no time at all, a lady had contacted us, and all of those people have now passed away apart from one. That one was a family member, and it was Mr. Ryan. Was it Earl Ryan, Irena?
Mm-hmm.
Got the details, contacted him, and Irena interviewed him. What did Mr. Ryan have to say, Irena?
Well, he was, I think he was 16 years old, and and he was out with his father, and they saw this thing that was roundish and in the water. And am I on?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening here.
Well,
It's showing the video. Hold on.
okay, hold
We
on.
have a ghost in the machine. There we go. Okay, ghost is gone.
Thank you. It's probably me.
He was with his father, and they saw this thing that was round, and he thought the light was coming from underneath it. And his father hit it. I wondered how his father could hit it with a oar, and they said he did, but he said his father had this real long oar. And,
and clunk. It just went clunk. It makes me wonder when you hear that. So you hear the testimony of the being in the water. You hear the testimony of a craft underwater. It makes you wonder, perhaps, is there caverns or tunnels, or has anybody explored or dived into this area? Are they perhaps living under there and coming up instead of coming from somewhere else?
Well,
It just
we
makes
can
you
only
wonder.
speculate what Irena and I decided to do, because we were just investigating this case. There was no thought of a book or anything, but it came to this stage where we had so much information that there were, we've written articles about it, but the only way to pass that information on was to put it all in a book. And of course, we didn't have a title for it. We had a working title. And then I watched a courtroom drama one night, and it said, "Oh, you've got to prove it beyond reasonable doubt." So I emailed Irene and I said, "Well, how about this for a title for the book?" And bingo. Because we say at the end of the book, we are convinced if we took all these witnesses and all this information into a courtroom, we could prove beyond reasonable doubt that something extraordinary happened that night.
Right.
Couldn't prove they're abducted by aliens, but something totally out of the ordinary. And as I've mentioned to others, I've been interviewed, as Irena has, for this new documentary. My last comments on my interview, they asked me what I thought of that night, and I said, Charlie Hickson, Calvin Parker were two ordinary men who on that night of October the 11th, 1973, encountered the extraordinary. And I left it there, And, Calvin toyed with the idea what these things were. He said it was aliens, on occasion, but, he didn't really have a clue. He just wanted to know. And,
right. We all want to know, right?
But again, we've been accused. I've heard others say, well, this incident in the water happened 3 weeks later. It's got no relevance to the case. I said, well, I'm afraid it does, because it's in the same stretch of water. Why? But again, we put it all in the book. Even with the documents that we have, there is a handwritten letter by one of the Coast Guard crew. Detail it. He actually wrote to Leonard Stringfield, crash retrieval researcher, but again, who's no longer with us. That is the letter. And, the Earl said this guy came from the Navy. The next day, check us out and show us where it happened. And he thought it was dumb, because there's nothing there now. It's just a patch of water. And I did read in a number of places that the Navy was supposed to write a report about this. Well, if they did, we've never been able to find it. And I have submitted letters to the Navy and the Coast Guard and so on. What is frustrating in these documents, it does mention that there was a tape of their interview with the eyewitnesses. Of course, all of them, apart from Mr. Ryan, are now deceased. I would love to be able to look at that tape.
Don't you know it?
But as yet, that's not turned up. But,
well, Philip, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the time is going by so quickly. So I'm just going to shift gears just slightly. And you're talking about this craft underwater. And recently you have the Tic Tacs where one came down and there was that craft underwater. And Dr. Scott, I'm wondering if you can talk about this. You have such an extensive background, and I know you know a lot about drones, and we had saw some images of the case of the week about drones, and I'm wondering if you can talk about these crafts, or what is your take, and are some of these drones, are some of them ours, or do we just not know?
Well, I think they can explain a lot of, like, the Tic Tac object could accelerate and then just stop, and that in such a way that the gravity would just smash a person or even the equipment. And then it also appeared to be able to go underwater and didn't bother a bit. I mean, you know, if an airplane went into the water, it would crash.
Right.
But
pieces,
the man I talked to about the submarine object, he said that the two might be tied together because, for one thing, they took place in the same time and area. He said it was about a mile apart or something. Oh. And the Blair family saw this thing come out of the water and saw these things swimming across, and then the Coast Guard made a real good investigation of it and took it seriously. And that's what's happening with the Tic Tac. I mean, the Air Force seems to not have anything to do with it much, but the Navy was who did a lot of the investigation for that, like the Nimitz and the Princeton and all that, and the tape and everything else. Some of that was from the DIA, but some of it was from the Princeton and the Coast Guard, and the Navy seemed to take it more seriously in both cases than the Air Force did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
what is interesting as well, ladies, I have to tell you this before I forget. In the book, we have another witness who was working in the shipyard during the daytime. I can't remember his name offhand, but he said, Philip, when you're working on a ship on the river, you're really high up and you've got a great vantage point. You can see everything. He witnessed the formation of objects under the water, come from out of the Gulf, down the river, and then he saw them later actually come back and go out. And he said these weren't porpoises or anything else. I know what a porpoise. These went underneath. The porpoise is up and out like this, And we've amassed all kind of things that are two young people at the time both say, because the area where this incident happened, they had this long, tall grass, which is 5 or 6 feet tall. One young man, they're both called Caldwell, but they're not related. One young man said, we saw it on the news on the Friday. On Saturday morning, his mum and dad used to have a lie in bed, and he was allowed to get up, watch cartoons on the TV. He was about 11 years old at the time.
Let's all do that.
So he's got the cartoons on and his mum and dad are asleep. He gets on his bicycle and goes out to this location with his pals, and they've pushed their way through this long grass. And he said they come across a huge part of it that is just gone. Oh. It's not flattened. It's not squashed. It is completely gone. And there's no sign of where it's gone to. There's no debris anywhere. Another gentleman said he was driving over the bridge. I think he was in a car. He was about 14. And he said he looked down and he could see this impression.
Was it circular? Was the impression circular?
Absolutely, yes.
Wow. Interesting.
And again, we just put and Mr. Caldwell, the was the younger one, he went back to the location and had his photograph taken in front of this tall grass, which is still there, of course, still growing in the area. And it's way above his head. And of course, there are pictures of him, in the book, and he's been interviewed, I believe, for the documentary. So there's all kinds of evidence, we would call it, that you can use to reach your own conclusion in the book.
Right.
So that's why I have to interrupt, because I'll suddenly remember another part of it. So I do apologize.
I mean, this case just has so many factors to it. I mean, you're talking, weren't there scratch marks too? Because we had the little puncture wounds on the foot. Yeah. No, and was that Charles Hickson that had the scratches, or was that Calvin?
That's okay.
What's happening? We have
What's happening?
Tara. Yeah, Tara.
There you go.
There's
There
the
you go.
scratches.
So what happened was Calvin's writing the book, and I said, "Have you got any photos or documents?" He said, "I've got nothing. We lost everything in Hurricane Katrina."
And now that's Calvin right there.
Let me explain. So
Okay.
I set off trying to find things, and of course, Dr. Hynek was involved with this case. So I contacted the Center for UFO Studies, and they sent me a file, PDF file. In the middle of this file is a one-page typewritten document entitled Puncture Wounds. And it tells of Charlie and Calvin being stripped down to their underwear. This is 2 days after the event. And that Charlie had puncture wounds on his forearm and Calvin in his foot. And it said there were photographs as well. Well, there was no photographs in this file. So the document was great. A good while later, the same gentleman sent me an email. He said, "Philip, I've been rooting through some files today and I came across these. I'm sure you've already got them, but I thought I'd better send them anyway." And of course, it was the photographs that were mentioned in this document.
Oh, wow.
And we know who is who, because you can't see that, because again, both sides of the photographs are scanned and it's got their names on the back. And of course, what you see is the puncture wounds in Charlie's forearm and in Calvin's foot. Remember, Charlie said when these beings got hold of him, he felt this prick in his arm. Calvin, while laying on this table, said they stuck something in my foot and it hurt. So we have the witness testimony, we have this document, we have these photographs. So I asked Calvin, I said, who was it that checked you over? He said it was Dr. James Harder. He came down at the same time as Dr. Hynek. He wasn't a medical doctor, but he gave him the once over and preserved the evidence. These are only minor injuries, but nonetheless, they are significant. And it shows a physical element to the encounter that night. And again, all of this is in the book. The photographs have never been published before, so they're published in our book for the first time. And we've got a couple of tests of, medical people comment on them, but it's not a lot you can say just from a couple of old photographs. They're just minor injuries, but nonetheless, I find them compelling. And when they arrived in my inbox, I'm like, never thought we'd see them. So we know there's other evidence, data, information out there. It's just a question of finding it.
Yeah, no, I mean, talk about two great detectives here, because, we're talking decades later. And like you said, I mean, MUFON was around in the 70s, but we didn't have the computers and internet, and it wasn't so easily, when you put in a report to MUFON back in those days, it was all via mail and these long forms. And in some regard, and Tara and I talked about this. We're sorry for our technical errors, but I think Tara jumped out and jumped back in to see, and you are a little bit better now. So
good.
Just internet
So
issues,
sorry,
right?
everyone.
We apologize for that. However, a lot of these cases in Mars and that they were really, really well, I think, and don't take this the wrong way, but we've gotten a little lazy depending on the computer to do research for us. Or back in the day, like Irena interviewing over 40 witnesses to conduct these interviews and do these long reports about it, is the way it was done, and is chock full of really valuable information. So you have a case, like you said, in a courtroom, you have multiple witnesses, puncture wounds, photographs, testimony, even the secretive, when they put the recorder in the thing trying to catch them going, "Oh, we're pulling the wool over their eyes." I mean, the fact that you transcribe these in the book, I can't wait to get my copy in the mail. I haven't ordered. I need to.
Just to give you an example as well, ladies, Irena and I have had several different editions of this book ready, and then we'd have to change it because we got some more information, but we finally drew a line in the sand. But then on, I think it was August the 3rd, we were contacted by a lady called Chelsea Norton Prince. She runs the Ocean Springs Historical Society.
Oh.
And she had an interest in this case. And one of the members of the society said, "Oh, I've got 2 boxes of letters that used to belong to Charles Hickson."
What?
Oh.
In 2011, this lady's mum and dad bought Charlie Hickson's house after he passed away. and all this stuff was left. So she passed these on to Chelsea. Chelsea knew of our involvement, contacted me the very next day and said, I've got this stuff. And within no time at all, she digitized it all. And I have it here on a thumb drive. I've yet to copy it all for Irena because there's like 1,500. Now there's a lot of reading. There's no smoking gun in these letters and documents, but it is a time capsule.
Yeah.
For example,
that's awesome.
There is some pencil sketches done by Charlie Hickson himself of the UFO.
Those are invaluable. Those are invaluable.
They've never been published. There you go.
Look at that.
There you go.
Look at that. Wow.
That's great.
And there are letters in there from Betty Hill to Charles Hickson.
Nice.
Other well-known UFO researchers and groups, including MUFON. And there are photographs of Charlie and Calvin that, again, haven't seen the light of day. People reporting their sightings to him. And so it is a little time capsule. But what is frustrating as well at the same time, the lady who donated these documents said, I used to have a lot more, but I gave them away some years ago, and I can't remember who I gave them to.
Oh, my gosh.
So if you're out there, these two.
Yeah. So we know that, for example, Charles Hickson kept a journal. You know, he hand wrote a journal. Maybe that's still lying around somewhere. So it's things like this that keeps us going, because we'd written the book, you know, we got it ready to be published, and then all this stuff arrived, you know, on a thumb drive. So I said to her, I'm not going to change it anymore. We'll leave it as it is. We can publish this stuff later. But what was really nice, there were 5 letters in this batch, personally addressed to Calvin Parker, but they didn't have Calvin's contact details, so they sent them to Charlie. Of course, Calvin never saw them. So I have them here now. I have the actual physical letters. So I digitized them and I sent them to Calvin before he died. I don't know if he got to see them, but I did send them, because one of the first letters is a lady writing in and apologizing for the shameful way that American television had treated Charlie and Calvin. They laughed at them, and she was disgusted. She's apologizing on behalf of the TV, and she's nothing to do with it, you know. And then we have a couple.
Must have been bad.
Yeah, we have a couple of young kids, students, wanting to know further information, you know. So they are really nice letters. And I've written a piece for a magazine here as like a memorial to Calvin. And instead of just doing the same old thing, I've actually we're reproducing these letters in full. All that's being omitted is the address on them. You know, we've even used the real names. And so again, it's a little time capsule. And I not only that, one of the documents is a list by Charlie, 1 to 20 bullet points of what the creatures look like. So, you know, the nose is so big, the chest was so many inches across, you know. Irena's going to pull it out. Watch.
And that's why they got such good drawings of it then. Because
did he describe the texture of the skin? Did they describe it? Oh, look at that. Wow.
So today we do that on a computer and have bullet points, wouldn't we? We'd have bullet points. So that's the you know, the old way, and it's, you know, it's fascinating, and I just hope we can find the rest of the material. Whoever obtained it didn't throw it in the dumpster or something like that. So we know there's other bits of material out there. It's just a question of finding it.
Yeah. I wonder if Maria kept a journal. You know, all those years that she thought, you know, that. Nothing happened, but she knew, you know, that would have driven me crazy. And I would have had to document that.
We're still in touch with Maria. And I mentioned earlier, Irena and I did an appearance on The Unexplained with Howard Hughes. And I had Howard phone Maria and record a conversation on the phone with her. So he was only able to do a couple of minutes out of that on his show. But he also has a podcast. So what he did on the podcast, he put the whole interview on there,
Nice.
which is about half an hour.
Right.
And what I've done since, I have transcribed that whole interview with Maria.
Right.
And we'll publish it at some point, because I think it's 11 pages long, so it's a bit long for an article as such, but we might summarize it and publish it.
Yeah.
And so we're still in contact with Maria, so who knows
in all
what
years, in all your research through the years, have you ever come across a similar looking extraterrestrial as the ugly ones? And you had mentioned something at the beginning of the show that they were described as kind of robotic or perhaps AI-like, which is fascinating to me because the Colorado Ranch, I don't know if you know my connection to that, this predates Skinwalker Ranch. We had these 2B alien guys that I describe as AI or like almost robotic, half AI, half human. And these creatures that they encountered in Pascagoula have somewhat kind of that AI robotic characteristic to that. Have you ever, either one of you, come across anything?
Irena.
One thing interesting about them is that they're shorter than people, and you'd expect them to be kind of taller. But that's it. A lot of people describe them as beings or aliens or things like they're beings. And Kelvin and Charlie seemed to think they were more mechanical, like robots.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I think that was based on the way they moved. And the fact that when they were taken on board this thing, that certainly Calvin said this thing just stood there like a robot. And it was really the female that was in charge. And, she'd just point at it and away it would go. It would react to her decisions, so to speak. So it was just an impression they got.
Charlie said, I think it was under hypnosis, but I think he said that he got the impression that there was somebody back that was observing them behind a window or something too, but he didn't say too much about that.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Got a sense.
So, it's almost as if maybe they're workers or with this female, like they must be working hand in hand together. Fascinating stuff. I want to encourage everybody. I know for sure, mine's in the mail, Beyond Reasonable Doubt, Pascagoula Alien Abduction. Please get that book. I mean, it's chock full of such valuable information that you're not going to get it anywhere else. You have to get it from this book, the transcriptions. This interview has been fascinating. I apologize for our technical glitches, but that happens sometimes, as we all know, with crazy internet. We are so honored that you took the time to speak with us, the two of you. And I want to show, I took screenshots of both their websites. I really want to encourage our listeners to go check out the websites. There we have Flying Disc Press. So many great publications. You can fill your library just from that website alone. And so many great things there. And the store, check out the store. We shared some of the products at the top of the hour at the beginning of the show. And then Dr. Irena Scott's website as well. Again, so many great publications. I'm so excited that, this case is such an important case. The work you've done on it and continue to do. There's still so many witnesses out there. And the fact that you two are on it is just fantastic. So thank you so much for everything you both do. Thank you for being a guest on our show. Thank you, Tara and Shane. We hope you get well.
Yes.
You're back with us next week. And thank you to Bill Skywatcher and KGRA for producing. It's fantastic to be able to share. And one thing I'm taking away from this for sure is I'm reading those dang comments, because that's why we do what we do, to tie in all these dots and reach out to people that don't know how to share their encounters. So that's fantastic that you were able to. It's like synchronistic. You guys were meant to have this case, and this was all meant to be. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. The things that you have found and these letters and so on. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. And watch this space. That's all I will say.
Well, you guys all have a good rest of your week, and
bye-bye now.
see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.